Now, most of you already know that as we saw last week from the statistics SA, the SA inflation is finally cooling off. This comes after we've been seeing South Africa, of course, struggling with higher inflation together with other big countries like the US, UK, and the others. I mean, this is, or inflation, it's one of the things that obviously it is not good, as it not only hurt consumers, but it also hurt the companies that, of course, we invest in the stock market. And most of you already know that with high inflation comes high interest rate hikes, which in South Africa, you know that the SA Reserve Bank has been increasing interest rate aggressively, trying to curb inflation, and it looks like it's working because, ladies and gents, as we saw last week, we saw inflation coming to 6.3%, which is at least closer to the upper end of the SA Reserve Bank target of 6%. As you know that the SA Reserve Bank's target on inflation is somewhere between 3 and 6%. Now, with all this cooling off, you will know that one of the things, or there are so many industries or sectors in South Africa that have not or recovered from high inflation and high interest rate hikes. I mean, this is mainly due to the fact that though we are seeing a cooling off from inflation, interest rates are still very high in South Africa, and this is not only hurting, of course, businesses or companies who invest in the stock market, but it is also hurting the consumer like you and me, because we are sort of like hesitant to go and take more loans maybe for some of the things that we want to buy. We are hesitant to go out there maybe and buy certain things because we cannot afford them anymore, because the repayments or the amount of money that we are repaying on our loans is just too much, or it's just a lot, which is why we are seeing, of course, some struggles from consumers not being able to obviously afford some of the things which they used to. I mean, just to prove that consumers are not spending as they used to, I mean, you can look at an indicator like the core retail sales in South Africa. You'll notice that they have been dropping quite sharply, which is something that shows you, or an indication that obviously consumers are not buying like they used to, which, ladies and gents, that will make, of course, the retailers to not make as much money as they used to, because consumers are spending less money. And like I said, this is mainly due to high interest rate hikes and high inflation. Things are expensive, which is why we are seeing consumers not buying, of course, these very same things that they used to buy 2 years ago due to this high inflation. So this is something that is hurting our companies and our economy as well, because, ladies and gents, the economy activity has slowed down because of this high inflation and interest rate hike. So what I personally think that the SA Reserve Bank needs to do is, of course, try to look at now either cutting or pausing interest rate hikes, because, ladies and gents, we are getting closer and closer to their target of between 3 and 6%. This is one of the main things that, of course, I believe it will stimulate the economy and make the companies we invest in to also recover in terms of revenue. But before I forget the house rules, you already know that this video is just an entertainment video and not a professional financial advice video. And I will appreciate if you can just hit the likes button, comment, and subscribe. And once you subscribe, don't forget to hit or click that notification bell that at least to get notified by YouTube every time I drop a new content. Now, most of you will know by now that the three things that are seriously slowing down our economy in South Africa are namely, of course, inflation, high inflation, interest rate hikes, and of course load shedding. These are the main three things that are having a huge impact into our economy. And with, of course, high inflation, the good thing is that it looks like we are winning that battle, which obviously will result, of course, in the Federal Reserve probably having to not increase interest rates and start thinking about maybe cutting interest rate. So once they cut or start cutting interest rate hikes, that is what, like I said, it will stimulate the economy, and it will make the economy activities, retail sales going up, because obviously then it would mean that consumers might have some more money to obviously go and get or buy those things which they used to. Now, the third thing, like I said, is this load shedding, which, of course, this load shedding is, again, it is not only hurting or making consumers cry, but it is also making companies cry, which is why many companies are having to come with mitigation measures to try to curb this load shedding. I mean, yesterday on the newspaper, I was reading a good article from one of the companies that I invest in from the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, who have started, of course, installing solar panels, trying to obviously come with a mitigation measure to curb this load shedding, and that is the company, or that is a company that is called Sun International, who started, of course, deploying or installing quite a number of solar panels to help them run Sun City even the time of load shedding efficiently. This is something that obviously to me it was a bullish thing, or it is a bullish thing from Sun International, which is why I'll continue, of course, or holding that company. But enough, I'm not here to talk about that company, but I'm just showing you some of the mitigation measures that companies are having to do, trying to, of course, curb or deal with this load shedding. So load shedding is also having a huge impact because companies are spending tons and tons of money, or millions and millions, trying to curb, of course, load shedding. I mean, with retailers it's worse because they need to make sure that even with load shedding, their food, or the food in their refrigerators, remains cool enough so that, of course, their meat don't get rotten, or their dairy products don't get rotten. These are some of the things that are making or forcing the retailers to come out with mitigation measures to obviously try to curb this load shedding. So otherwise, what I think the South African Reserve Bank needs to do, of course, it is to, of course, start, of course, thinking about cutting interest rates now, because inflation is cooling off, or signs are, of course, showing a better inflation, or they are showing a de-inflation, which is something that obviously it is a good thing. I think before this year ends probably will be below, or in the second half right now, we are going to find ourselves being in below 6%, or having an inflation of 6% in South Africa, which will be a good thing. Now that, ladies and gents, if it happens, it is going to make, of course, the SA Reserve Bank to probably think of maybe aggressively decreasing interest rates. But otherwise, personally, I feel like they should start thinking about that, or they should at least start pause rate hikes, because inflation is cooling off. In their next meeting, I think it's supposed to take place in July, they need to start thinking about that, because, ladies and gents, if they continue increasing interest rates, it is going to put SA's economy into a serious damage, which might take a while to repair the damage which will be caused by high interest rate hikes. I mean, the indicator from the SA Reserve Bank that measures, of course, economic improvement slumped for the 5th consecutive month, which is something that must just show you, or it shows us or tells us that the Reserve Bank needs to, of course, start to think about cutting interest rates, because it is having, or these high interest rate hikes are having a huge impact into our economy, which obviously will not be good, or unless we act, or they act now by cutting interest rates, or thinking of just pausing interest rates, then the, of course, damage that will be done in the economy will be unbearable. So otherwise, with all that, guys, I just thought I'd just give you this quick updates. But the good thing is that, ladies and gents, we are having to see companies that we invest in, of course, putting in mitigation measures to try to curb inflation, which is a good thing, right? I mean, with the mining sector, you will know that, of course, last week we read one of the news of saying that production has increased from March, which is something that obviously it is a good thing, and that is year over year. So we are seeing some slight recovery from, of course, some of the sectors or industries that we invest in the stock market locally, which is something that obviously it has to be taken as a very good thing. I mean, this, ladies and gents, if we can get to see the SA Reserve Bank starting to cut interest rate, probably the end of the year, we are going to see, of course, at least our country, our economy recovering quite well. Otherwise, I make tons and tons of stock market investing videos. So if you think that this video was amazing, please don't forget to hit the like button, comment and subscribe. And once you subscribe, don't forget to hit or click that notification bell so that at least you get notified by YouTube every time I drop a new content. Otherwise, that's all from me, and I wish you nothing but the best in your stock market investing journey, and God bless you all.